Welcome to the Dead Harvey podcast. This is Brad Paulson. I have with me today a very awesome guest. The great comedian Steve Lolli is with us. He's been making me laugh my ass off for years. He's going to be talking to us about a movie that we both admire greatly called Bad Milo. This is a very unique, unusual movie about a certain kind of puppet monster, an ass puppet monster. So when you look at the course of puppet history, Stephen, like puppet monsters, puppet horror, you get things like Chucky, you get things like Everybody Loves Benny, you get Mad God that Phil Tippett came out with, you have Puppet Master, or you have Dollman versus Demonic Toys, all of these great, a Trilogy of Terror, of course, all these great classics in puppet horror history, but no one has come up with the brilliance of an ass monster yet. Now, there's been cock monsters and things like that that Trauma has done, but not an ass monster.
You know what? First of all, I don't even consider this a puppet. This is such a masterpiece of cinema that it exceeds any puppet genre.
Yes.
In fact, it is in my top 5 comedy horror. To me, it's comedy horror.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure where one begins, the other one ends. I think it's funnier probably than it is scary.
Yeah.
But I would say that Jacob Vaughn and Benjamin Hayes,
Mm-hmm.
these two guys who wrote this film, and Jacob Vaughn who directed it, they deserve some sort of wide-ranging international recognition. And yes. I mean, like Nobel Peace Prize level. Anyone who can think of a story where a creature comes out of a man's ass and attacks the people who are bothering him,
yes,
those people deserve puppetry or no puppetry. Those people deserve wide-ranging recognition. And yeah, I mean, just the overall story. And by the way, the guys who produced this fucking movie have ass in their name.
Oh, the Duplass brothers.
Ass,
the Duplass
right there.
brothers. Yeah, yes.
Right there in the name. There's so many things in this movie that are, it's beautiful. This movie's beautiful. It's the kind of movie I like to recommend to people who go to the Met Art Gala and who love waxing philosophical about the latest award season films.
Yes.
I just love this movie. So I watched it again with my roommate, and he, we talked to his parents and him are very close. And while we were watching it, I go, "Do you think this would be a fair movie to recommend to your parents?" And he said, "Absolutely not."
Well, there is like father-son themes in it, quite a bit of those. So I think, like, in a way, yes, but although if they're not into that kind of movie, they're probably not going to give it a chance. Yeah. No. Yeah. Everybody's different on that kind of level with like B movies. It almost has to be like, there has to be an opening kind of movie to get somebody into like more of a mainstream kind of B movie to really launch them off onto like the crazy stuff, the crazy indie stuff. But well, let's go into kind of like the story about this movie. So this movie is about a guy who has, well, it's Ken Marino, who's fantastic. He was in Party Down. He's in Children's Hospital, all kinds of great stuff. And there's a really cool ensemble cast in this movie, especially like Stephen Root, played Milton from Office Space, is in it as well too, plays his father. But so anyways, Ken Marino's character, he has all this stress in his life. And the more stress that he gets, the more it results into stomach pain. And he's like feeling all these grumblings and he can't control himself. And what happens is eventually so much stress in his life causes a killer ass puppet to come out and attack all the people that are causing him stress. So then we go from there, like, he seeks therapy, he gets hypnotized, and that's where he discovers the puppet. And then he has to find out how to sort of like make peace with this puppet. So when he goes to the hypnotist played by Peter Stormare, who was in Fargo and then also played the devil in Constantine, which he does a fantastic job in. He's great in all kinds of stuff. But he says, you can't kill this puppet because if you do, it'll basically lobotomize you. So he has to find a way to cuddle with and calm down and bond with his ass puppet, which would be a strange and difficult thing to do for just like the stench alone,
When the guy, okay, first of all, the cast of this movie,
yes.
So many things of this movie are so fucking perfect.
Yes.
The casting of Ken Marino,
he's great.
He's fantastic.
He's great.
You could not cast that better. And I don't know all the names of the actors,
Mhm.
and you're more in tune with that than I am. But I know the psycho from Fargo, who
Yes.
therapist with the feather, probably
Yeah.
read the script, and I could just hear him in my bond with it, bond with it,
Yeah.
bond with it.
He's got
You
that
know,
Swedish, Norwegian
Patrick
kind of
Warburton,
accent. Yeah.
Patrick Warburton. Oh my God,
Oh yeah.
perfectly cast. Mary Kay Place from The Big Chill, who can't get pregnant in The Big Chill, and all she's talking about in this movie is pregnancy. There are
Yeah.
so many beautiful, and a bunch of other people from TV shows I would
Yeah.
never watch, but everyone's perfectly cast. Even the doctor at the beginning with the sonogram
Oh yeah.
is so fun. Okay, this is highly problematic. Okay, this is where is that? You know, it's just so beautiful. And there's even a line in this movie, Brad, where Warburton says he's because he's a criminal, right?
Yeah.
He says to Ken Marino, you gotta rob Peter to pay Paulson. Did you?
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
There's a guy
okay.
named Paulson with your last name. I
Oh,
mean,
I did not catch that. Wow, I got
dude,
the yeah, Rob Peter to pay Paul, but I didn't catch that last part. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah.
there's a lot of weird parallel stuff going on in this movie.
Yeah, all kinds of just like, yeah, a great cast, like a great comedy ensemble. So what do you think about this movie, like as a stand-up comic appeals to you? What do you think that like makes it stick out in your mind and kind of separate itself from other crazy ass movies like this?
I don't know a whole lot. First of all, I don't know a whole lot of crazy ass movies, other than the scene in Pulp Fiction, which everyone knows. Um, I don't know, and that wasn't really the theme of the entire. This is the theme of the entire movie. Honestly, man, I think it is the most beautiful. It's right up there with the people being offended by Dave Chappelle.
Yeah.
This movie is right up there with this. Let me tell you what this movie is. This movie is the creature that lives in my ass that
Mhm.
I pull out and share with people who I want to make uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I will share this movie like the creature in my ass, and it will come out and attack. You know, oh yeah, I'll tell. Like, I should recommend this movie to my dad.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah, it's up there. Look, dude, I love cinema. I love great films, but this is an underappreciated masterpiece.
Yeah. I agree. I agree. And I didn't, it's so weird too, because I didn't even think of it as like, I just saw it kind of working like as a really good comedy horror, but I forgot about it as like a puppet horror movie too. And it kind of, so it just works on like a lot of different levels. What's cool about like actually watching this movie a couple times is that you see how like well it's structured too. It's really streamlined and it's like 83 minutes long. I was looking at the wrong time
Oh,
for it. And
wow.
it's like, that does not happen that often anymore. When somebody makes a movie that's focused and like hits its target really well, like this one does, because this movie like hits exactly what it's going for. I saw the reviews on this were like 53 or 58% from critics, and they're like, this movie aims to discuss and it does so. I was like, yeah, exactly. They're saying that it does like what it was
But
designed to
it's
do.
hilarious.
But
It's hilarious.
yeah.
I mean, when they're sitting at dinner with his mother, and she's dating a guy who's 20 years younger, and
Yeah.
all he can talk about, you can call me daddy.
Yeah, Camille Nanjiani, I think that's how you
Okay,
say
you
his name.
can call me. No, I don't want to call you. No, I don't. This is
Yeah.
and the doctor comes in. I mean, it is really a tightly made comedy.
Yeah,
It's a
it
top
is.
comedy, man. I mean, it's a top comedy without horror and the puppets. I know you're a horror puppet and little person,
Mhm.
but as somebody who's not as much into that, I
Mhm.
dig it. But it's a great comedy. The other thing is the musical score is perfectly used. It's not
Yeah.
overused. That's another thing I think from our generation, we got very fortunate that all of the movies, the musical score was not overused. It wasn't like the air freshener you put in the John when you want to
Mhm.
cover up bad shit. You
Right.
know, we had the John Williams, we were from the John Williams generation. So he uses it perfectly. He uses it perfectly when Ken Marino goes to visit his dad. Then you hear this funny music coming in. He
Yeah.
uses it perfectly when he's at the therapist and the therapist is having a revelation about how he's going to tell him to bond with his bowel movements.
Yeah.
And just it's just a perfectly made film. I really don't have any criticism of it at all. And the fact that it ends in Khalil Nanjiani's dungeon sex torture chamber,
Yeah.
right? It's great.
Yeah, there's a scene where the puppet's attacking everybody. There's a showdown against the puppet, and Ken Marino's like, "Wow, let's go to the basement," And the mom, Mary Kay Place, she's like, no, well, we're like rearranging some things, and they're probably not a good idea." And they go down there, and it's a sex dungeon that her and Camille Najani have been experimenting with. But it's great, and he's like, Camille it's hilarious because he's just tormenting him the whole time because he's dating his mom, telling him, like you said, to call him daddy, and he's making out with her for a very long time in front of him, just being as awkward as possible. But it's great. It's just great. Yeah, and his boss, Patrick Warburton, so many good, like kind of like just deadpan, but like really like the delivery of all of the actors in this movie are so good. This movie does a very clever thing where it uses the subconscious. There's certain movies that were like there'll be like an evil friend, like a bad influence or an evil friend, and that friend sort of represents the id. And this movie does a very clever thing where it takes like thriller movies or horror movies like that, and it puts that spin on it where it makes the id the puppet. And that's great. I think that's very like, almost like kind of has like its own subgenre with that.
Yeah, it was clever. It was clever, and it was good writing. It was good writing. And you know what, anytime you're ever in a bind with when something like this, you can always pull out the Raiders of the Lost Ark book. I think he pulls out like a bound, like old leather book that, probably he maybe shouldn't even legally have. I mean, we don't even know what, right? He's looking through some hieroglyphs and shit, which is like, you can always do that in any movie, right? And the parrot's calling him witch doctor. So he's probably, remember? And he's very offended when the parrot.
He has a bird that is questioning his legitimacy. That does make me wonder, since you brought that up, how he knew that his theory would be right about that. Because when you see Stephen wrote his father, there's a ass puppet. Sorry to give spoilers out, so spoiler warning here, but it's 2013 that came out, so I think we're clear. But the father also gets hypnotized. They had the two ass puppets come out and have an ass puppet battle royale. And when that happens, Milo, which is Ken Marino's puppet, kills his father's puppet. And so his father is essentially lobotomized. Like towards the end of the movie, you see him at a barbecue and they're talking to him. He's kind of like almost drooling. They're feeding him and stuff like that. So the witch doctor was right about his theory, which is interesting. But
I mean, the movie set up perfectly for a sequel because she's pregnant at the end.
That's true. Yeah.
And the father, is looking at her pregnant belly and thinking, there's another fucking ass creature. There's another angry ass creature that's going to be brought into the world. And we go through some tube in the body, and we see a little ass creature at the end. That
reminds me, this movie also does a very unique thing too, because it parallels that, because in the beginning they show sort of like a later scene in the movie where he's being chased by the puppet. Like whenever they start movies and there's an action scene, they're like, let me take you back when this all started.
It starts with the chase scene.
Yeah, it starts with the chase scene, and then Ken Marino screams and the camera goes down his mouth and into the colon. And I was like, I have never seen that in a movie before. I applaud that.
In Inner Space, they did it. In Inner Space, where they started in, but another great comedy, by the way.
Inner Space is great. I watched that recently.
Yeah, it stands the test of time. I do want to point out two comic, since you asked me about from the comedy aspect, two perfectly comic. Patrick Warburton is fucking amazing, by the way.
He's great.
I cannot say enough about how perfectly cast and funny he is, and how unapologetic and scum sucker he is as the fucking criminal boss. But the guy who he sticks in the bathroom with, he gives him a new office. He gives Ken Marino, he goes, come to your new office. Here's your new office. You're going to be sharing it with this. The guy he's sharing the office with, which is, QB, I guess we're new office mates. That guy's perfectly cast. Perfectly. And also, every time I hear rabid raccoon in the movie, because that's what they blame the attacks on. Rabid raccoon, and it was a rabid raccoon. I lose my shit every time I hear rabid raccoon. And finally, one last observation, because I'm just going through my checklist. Were there any other moments that you found hysterical that I might be leaving out?
Well, let's see. I laughed quite a bit at the dinner scene with Kamal and the mom, the basement scene. I laughed at quite a bit. Yeah, the office space, I guess, like when he's brought to the bathroom, that's pretty damn funny because he gets like told that he's gonna get like a promotion kind of, and he gets brought to the bathroom, and I remember one line specifically that made me laugh. There's all these, so there's like toilets in there, and they have office supplies around the toilet. And then the guy that you're talking about, his new like assistant or whatnot, he's like, are these toilets functional? Because that could make going to the bathroom a lot easier and save us time. and they just cut to Patrick Warburton, and he just has this very like exasperated look on his face, and they just stay on it for a while, and that really cracked me up. There's just really good moments like that in that they kind of like linger on and sell the comedy in it, that I think works really well.
Okay, also one of it, it's not a nice executive bathroom. It's like the kind of bathroom you'd see in a public school.
Yeah.
with Joe versus the volcano bathroom lighting. With that, like, yeah. Yeah, man. That's so fucking good. I just cannot love this movie enough.
Yeah, it actually gets better. Like, this is a good movie for like repeat watchings because it's so like it has a short run time, so it's easy to rewatch, and you pick up more stuff on it, and you pick up more like the comedic moments because the cast is so good. They're probably improvising some stuff and making some choices in it that really sell it, that really work. But it's like that adds to it. Like that cast really makes it work. I was going to ask you this. What do you think? Because we talk about like how Hollywood screws things up all the time. If Hollywood was to acquire the rights to this and make a big budget movie, what kind of movie do you think they would make, or what do you think they would change about this?
I think it would be a strong female lead who would overcome her ass creature.
Yeah. Now, do you think that the puppet would still come out of the ass, or would they change that?
It would be a female puppet for a strong female lead, and it would definitely come out of the ass. But it would kill a male puppet.
Yeah. Or every villain in the movie would be male. Yeah, definitely.
That's what it would be. That's a good question there, Brad. I hope I answered that satisfactorily.
Or maybe they would just use the name and then make like a completely different movie.
Oh, a romantic comedy.
Yeah, exactly. They would do like a romantic comedy, and they would just have like they would have like some sort of stomach discomfort at the end, and then they would talk out their feelings, and then they would have some pop music, and then they would break up, and then they would get back together at the end. And then maybe at the very end, one of them would have some minor discomfort and drink some Alka-Seltzer, and then like romantic or happy music would play again, and then it would be over.
Product placement.
Yeah. That's true. Like what you notice about like stuff now is like all the insane, like it's not as much like a score now, like a subtle score in movies. It's always like this super over the top, like total, like, and it's what's weird too is like why they always play Billie Eilish songs in every movie. And if it's like it doesn't matter like what kind of movie it is, like they're just playing her music. They're just like, this is the person right now that we've just decided to market. So it doesn't matter whether it's a comedy, a horror movie, like anything, we're just going to put her song in it. It just doesn't, it's like so out of place for a lot of stuff.
Yeah, maybe the executives think it'll attract younger people to watch a movie. I don't know, honestly.
Yeah.
But their packaging, remember their packaging. All these, especially if it's a big thing, it's all packaging.
Yeah.
So it's CAA packages it all, and they got their people, and they're like, we're putting so they're all putting everyone in the basket to.
Yeah.
You know.
I would have just loved
the cast would look like a Gossip Girl. It would be the cast of Gossip Girl.
Yeah.
They remade it for a big budget for sure.
Yeah, I would have just loved to be like a fly on the wall and hear like how they sold this movie. Like how did they approach this to the people giving them money? Like the Duplass brothers are pretty like they're cool because they're into like really, they used to call their movies mumblecore, Jay and Mark Duplass. And I remember reading about, they used to go and they used to make a movie like almost every weekend. So on the weekends they would just get a bunch of people and they'd have like very limited locations. It would be mostly all dialogue. They'd usually get kind of like a lot of comedians, and then they would sort of improv
Yeah.
through a lot of it, and they would shoot movies in a very fast turnaround, like probably like 6 or 7 days,
This
and they
was
would
not
do it
an
in a couple
easy,
weekends.
yeah, this was not an easy movie to make, clearly. This was
No.
took because of the puppetry
Yes.
and the effects and the time that it would take to get the amount of time it would have taken to not only create these creatures, but
Yeah.
to get just the right, action from them.
Yeah.
This would not have been a cheap movie to make.
But it has a very like indie spirit to it, like just the fact that like and I think the Duplass brothers, that they have had that background where they've made like super indie stuff. They're open to different ideas and taking chances, so I think they were probably a big part of getting this movie made. But I think if they're trying to approach any kind of like Hollywood exec about getting money for this, they're going to be either like laughed at or thrown out of the room, or maybe like blacklisted. But,
You know
but
what?
that's what I just love seeing stuff like this get made, because it's just so unusual.
The only thing, if you really think about it, the only scene in this movie that's really horrendous is when the Milo bites off the dick. The rest of the movie is really just a comedy.
Yeah.
And without that scene in it, it's kind of like a Borat without the ass sitting on, the fat guy sitting on his face.
Right.
It
lasted for a while. Yeah.
Yeah, and that was gruesome. The dick being bit off was gruesome. But yeah, if you take that scene out, you're really it's a horror movie, but it's more of a comedy, right?
Yeah, I was surprised they got away with that, actually. Yeah, like they don't shy away from gore, but the tone is so comedic, and it's played comedic, kind of like when like you're laughing during the attacks most of the time. Yeah, except for that scene. Like, I think you're right. That's the one that sort of stood out to me as the most kind of gruesome. And the other ones you are kind of like laughing, or at least I was like laughing halfway through. But also but then again, I kind of laugh at things other people don't laugh at as well too. So
yeah. Well, also, yeah, it's a comedy, but all these actors are characters playing it straight.
Yeah, that's what makes it really work.
Works is because they're playing it real.
Yeah.
And they're characters. I mean, they're Warburton and the doctor and the all the doctors in this thing and the guy in the QB, and they're characters. And so anyway, that's why there's tension. What's the guy from Office Space? What's Stephen Root?
Stephen Root, yeah.
He's not overacting. He's not mugged.
No. Yeah.
Also, the double humor with him being the hippie who doesn't want to express a full range of human emotion. That's an extremely funny commentary on the deadbeat dad, who you're like, you really don't know. You're looking at him like, oh, what a piece of shit this guy is. And you don't realize he's got some shit that's much more serious going on that he needs not to have any responsibility. There's just so many levels of comedic brilliance to this thing.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I agree. So when I was watching this movie the whole time, I was just thinking I wonder what inspired this movie. There's only was it like a moment of distress? Was it like an embarrassing moment that the writer had, or was he did he get something from another movie? There was another movie that I saw. It was called the only thing that kind of reminds me of this a little bit, that has an id to it and also a puppet. It's called Brain Damage, and it's an early Frank Henenlotter movie. I think from like early 90s, like right around the time Frankenhooker came out, after Basket Case, which is about a guy who takes like this drug, but this drug is from an alien, and the alien lives inside of his head. So basically the alien comes out to like attack people and stuff. And then the guy, he like basically whenever the guy tries to get rid of the alien's like, you want some of this good shit though, right? So the alien will tap the guy with this drug as long as he keeps him living in his head. And then, but then alien like breaks out into like song and dance, and it's really weird. It's really weird. But it's like a New York Underground movie, but it's awesome. It's called Brain Damage. But I was wondering if that's the only thing like movie wise that I saw that I think they might have gotten something from. But I was wondering, do you think that what do you think could have influenced this movie, or what do you think brought about like the concept for this, or like the genesis of it? Where do you think that came from?
Well, you also have Alien. Could have been some.
Oh, That's right.
to
Yeah,
some
and you're talking about like the
degree.
original Alien movie?
Original Alien.
Yeah, I forgot about
It's
that.
not a
Yeah.
funny movie at all, but Alien. I'm trying to think of where anything comes out of someone. I don't know. Other than that and the brain damage, I haven't seen brain damage, but there might be one that might occur to me later on. But no, I hadn't thought of that. Actually,
Yeah.
I honestly just thought it was like an immaculate conception. Like
Yeah.
somebody just took a shit that was so fucking painful that
Yeah.
one of these guys said to the other one, you know what? Like Benjamin Hayes just took a shit that was so fucking painful one time. And he had this immaculate like this perfect, like I should make a movie a thing coming out of somebody's ass.
Yeah, I wonder if like there was drugs involved or whether it was just or I mean I could see like somebody like being on a trip and thinking this would make it pretty cool, but it's awesome. Like I just like anything that's like this unusual like this and out of the box it gets made, I just totally think is great and support. And I want to see more stuff like it because it's just what we're dealing with right now with movies coming out is just such like just boring kind of like sludge, like just rehashed, and we're just seeing the same crap over and over again. And the only like real kinds of, with a few exceptions, creativity I see right now is coming out of indie stuff. It's like crazy indie movies like this, and I'm seeing them come out more frequently because streaming is so much more available now, and after COVID it's all over the place, so these movies are getting like a bigger platform. But I was thinking like maybe it has something to do with, maybe there was like a bad Taco Bell experiment, like mixed with drugs. Because when you go to Taco Bell, like much like whenever this character has stress, he can pretty much count on that the puppet's going to go out and attack somebody. When you go to Taco Bell, it's like, for me, it's like 20 minutes. And then it's,
Really?
I better be near somewhere or I'm in trouble. Now I went to, and I was like thinking, yeah, just like clockwork, like you're stressed, like clockwork, like 20 minutes will make that happen. The same thing with certain kinds of food. So I wonder, my theory is it was a bad like Taco Bell or experience mixed with a drug trip.
I see. Huh.
And maybe they were watching brain damage on the drug trip. Who knows? But
maybe they were. Maybe actually they were high and watching brain damage. That could have been enough.
I was thinking about that. And I was thinking about this movie because I went to like my cousin's wedding this weekend and I was on the road. So I was like, I better stop somewhere for some food, but it's not going to be Taco Bell because I don't want to like, ruin anything before I go to the wedding. So it's like, what could I have that like wouldn't really disturb me too much? And I was like, what do I have like from just sense memory that I won't have 20 minutes before I have to go and like something violent happens? And I was like, well, there's the Golden Arches. And I was in a small town called Deer Lodge. So I went there and it was less than 20 minutes. And I was counting like, because on some of these like areas that are,
what did you have there?
I had 10 pieces of chicken McNuggets, an Oreo flurry,
You did this
a quarter pounder with cheese,
oh my God.
medium fries.
Anything
Yeah,
else?
that was it. But I was so I kind of well, maybe that's why. Maybe I just answered my own question.
I think you just combined. Man,
But I didn't really eat anything.
I admire that you can still eat like that at our age, actually.
Oh, I do. It's just much more painful afterwards. Yeah.
Do you remember? I have a question for you about this movie.
Mhm.
Do you remember who recommended this movie to you?
Well, I believe you did.
Did I?
Yeah, I believe it was you. I think
Oh
you told
my
me.
gosh, I've done the Lord's work.
Yeah.
I've done the Lord's work in the universe.
Yeah, I think you told me about this movie years ago, and then I watched it after that. And then we've kind of like, just whenever we're talking, we'll bring this movie up just kind of like occasionally. We'll bring it up. We'll kind of bring up Bad Milo and just kind of laugh about it and talk about like moments of it. But yeah, things like this, like movies that are so different and work really well like this too, because there's movies that are like really unique, but they don't have the charm of this or like the cast that makes it work. There's a lot of like sort of lightning in the bottle elements that come into place in this, which is why I think I'm glad that they didn't make a sequel or try and like, because whenever they're like, okay, we struck gold with this, now let's keep going, let's make sequels, let's make like the other generations of the puppets. Sometimes that works, sometimes that doesn't. Sometimes they could just run an idea into the ground and exhaust it to the point where like you don't like it anymore, kind of like what Hollywood is doing with all the franchise stuff now. So I'm glad that this movie exists in a universe where it's self-contained, lightning in a bottle like itself, because I think trying to recreate that would be difficult.
I admire you. You're really eloquent when it comes to describing these movies, especially in your other Dead Harvey. You know, because those of you out there, I'm a fan of the Dead Harvey. I watch the reviews, and I'm not as eloquent. I just gonna laud praise on this movie, but I do want to mention who referred this movie to me.
Okay,
It
cool.
was an old friend, probably a best friend from childhood, and a guy who he's an enigma because he's the kind of guy who would appreciate award season type fare, but at the same time, when he recommended this to me, he was like, if you just want to have fun, you just want to have a good time and watch a movie, I'm recommend this movie to you. This is also the same guy who dropped a hit of acid in my fucking Carvel milkshake when we were like 22 and took me to see Saving Private Ryan in the theater. So he's a practical joker, but this was one that I genuinely love. And I would say that the only thing that's missing, there's only one thing for me that's missing from this movie, and that is the Constipation Blues by Screamin' Jay Hawkins.
Ooh, that's a good call.
That would have, now maybe these kind of guys who made this movie probably would have already thought of this and maybe even tried to license it, and it probably might have been too much or who knows what, but that would have been the only thing as the end credits roll, to have Screamin' Jay Hawkins go into.
That's fantastic. Boy, that would be awesome if they closed with that. That's great. I love that.
That would be my question for these guys if I ever meet them. Jacob Vaughn. By the way, Jacob Vaughn would be a great collaborator for you.
He's awesome. You know what? He edited, or he was listed as editor on a movie called In Search of a Midnight Kiss, which my friend Bruce J was in, who was also a stand-up comedian. R.I.P. He's passed away a couple of years now, but yeah, he had a part in that movie. I was like, oh, that's cool. That's a connection to another stand-up comic that I know.
Suicide Poet, yeah. And Brad, you did a movie called Suicide Poet about Bruce, documentary about.
Yeah,
he was I knew him too.
He was a fascinating guy. Yeah. So awesome. Well, yeah, thanks for the good words about Dead Harvey. I think that I appreciate that. And it's great to have you on here. And for the audience, thank you so much for listening. And you want to find yourself actually, what I'd recommend this for is a date movie. Take a date to this movie or watch it secluded. So that
Netflix and chill.
Yeah, Netflix and chill for this one, and just test their sense of humor. And
if she likes this, or if he likes this, you got to keep her.
Absolutely, a total keeper if they're into this, for sure. Anyways, well, thank you so much for being with us, Steve. It was great talking to you, and thanks for listening to Dead Harvey Podcast. And until next time, stick to the roads, stay clear of the moors.